Please welcome Pastor Joseph Bryant, visionary, life coach, motivational speaker from Calvary Hill Community Church in San Francisco. He's a national sports director of Rainbow Push and the architect behind Push Tech 2020. Your warm applause, Pastor Joseph Bryant.
Let us pray. Father God, thank you for bringing us together to celebrate this season and all that we have endured, all that we have accomplished. We thank you for the visionary leadership of our strong architect, founder, CEO, and all things to all people, the legendary, living legend, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. And thank you, God, for allowing us to continue to ride the coattail of change as he continues to open the doors of opportunity. Bless our time today with our businesses, our friends, colleagues, and co-workers from all around this land and country. Bless our food and our fellowship. Allow us to leave this place ready to continue to fight on for justice, equality, and opportunity for all. In your name we pray. Amen.
We'd like to welcome you here. This is a luncheon, like a working luncheon. The Reverend Jesse Jackson is going to come up and welcome us in a few minutes and talk more about the Wall Street Project and what it means to the black community. We have a lot going on today. We just wanted to say thank you. Thank you. Enjoy the networking. As you begin your lunch, we want you to watch a video. It's about the history of the Wall Street Project. Please lower the lights and start the video. This is the Wall Street Project and what we're doing about business to business in the black community. Lower the lights.
In 1996, Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. and the Citizenship Education Fund founded the Wall Street Project. The Wall Street Project challenges corporate America to end the multi-billion-dollar trade deficit with minority vendors and consumers and works to assure equal opportunity for diverse employees, entrepreneurs, and consumers.
I would suppose if I were writing a freedom symphony, and the first traumatic movement would be to end slavery. And the second movement would be to usher in public accommodations. The third movement would be the right to vote. The fourth and last movement in that symphony would be Wall Street, the capital of capital, to share the wealth, to share the growth, to share the prosperity, to declare that this land is our land.
The project uses Operation Breadbasket's model of research, education, and negotiation, and reconciliation to achieve its mission to promote inclusion, opportunity, and economic growth.
We are here today because Wall Street has a critical role to play in fulfilling Dr. King's dream of opportunity for all Americans.
The New York Stock Exchange closed for the first time in observance of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday and hosted a gala fundraiser to benefit the Citizenship Education Fund and work of the Wall Street Project. Toyota presented details of their $7.8 billion 10-year diversity initiative. General Motors selected Ariel Investments as the first minority mid-cap manager within its $20 billion defined contribution plan. Ariel Investments was also selected to be a part of General Motors' 401k. AT&T selected Williams Capital Group and Blaylock & Company as co-managers of a $500 million bond transaction. In the transaction of its $8.7 billion stock sale, AIG selected 18 minority firms, including Loop Capital Markets LLC, Castle Oak Securities, and Kaufman Brothers, just to name a few.
We know that there are many people qualified and anxious and shovel ready. Say shovel ready. So we are shovel ready to do business.
And we'll rise up. I like the waves. We'll rise up. In spite of the ache, we'll rise up. And we'll do it 1,000 times again.
Good job. The Wall Street Project and what we're doing. If you go by Rainbow Push any Saturday morning, you will see 8, 9, 10, and 12-year-old young people learning to code right there at Rainbow Push, thanks to the money from Intel, Microsoft, and Apple. They're contributing to the black development in the black community. That's happening right every Saturday at Rainbow Push. Stop by. Judge Mathis, I was there. I did a story on it, but it's very positive. It's feel-good energy. Right now, I'd like to bring forward a man who knows a lot about coding. He was a contemporary of Bill Gates. He began coding back in the early 1980s. He is now with the Wall Street Project. Please welcome Jim Parks with your warm applause. Jim Parks, come on out here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a lot of people to thank, but I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version of the report card. I want to take this opportunity to thank God, from whom all blessings flow. And speaking of God, you know, when I first read the Bible, the entire Bible, I started seeing all these begats. What is that, begat? And then as I looked more closely, I realized that within this genealogy, there were important stories that create what we call in the investment industry a mosaic of information. My name is Jim Parks, and I'll be using the first-person narrative as I describe the 20-year report card for the Wall Street Project. The events that led up to it also are very important as we develop this historic context for how this whole Wall Street Project got started. Now, as many of you already know, Operation Push grew out of Operation Breadbasket. I went to my first Operation Breadbasket back in 1969. And that was when Reverend Jackson introduced to the world Dr. Alvin Poussin. And that just shows you what a great mind Reverend Jackson had to really connect the dots between economic justice and our psychology and understanding how all of those things come together. Basically, after we had the beginning of the Operation Push, we also went on to have 20 years later, we had the National Association of Securities Professionals, which was founded in 1985, but their first annual meeting was in the winter of 1986, and I was there, and the Wall Street Journal, they reported that Paul Volcker, who was then the chairman of the Federal Reserve, they reported that he was there as a keynote. What they left out was that Reverend Jackson had waited on a tarmac for several hours to come to this meeting. And he was there despite all of the inclement weather, but he was there because he had the foresight to recognize the potential of this group of talented minorities and women breaking into the hallowed halls of finance and investment. In 1991, Reverend Jackson was elected to serve as a non-voting senator of the District of Columbia. After learning the ins and outs of the federal government, he merged Rainbow and Push, and subsequently in the same year, the concept of the Wall Street Project was born. And 20 years after that, we put together a report card which refreshes our memories and memorializes our results through the ebbs and flows of our nation's economy. Now, when we look at this report card, just look at it for a minute. You have them at your desk, at your tables. And one of the things we notice is that when we look at the best list, the best industries, we have manufacturing, janitorial, and information technology. Manufacturing and janitorial have been around for a while, and they've had some time to adapt to the diversity and inclusion world. Information technology thrives on cognitive diversity. However, unfortunately, it does not quite get the relevance of the representational diversity. We need to help the IT world improve and build on their disruptive innovation mindset. That is the role of the Silicon Valley Initiative. When we look at the list of the worst industries, what do you notice? All of them have relationships as the key component of success. The frontier of improvement for women and minorities in these industries will depend on our ability to build strong and trusting relationships. Keep in mind that it takes years to build trust. It only takes a moment to destroy it. Now on the next slide, we have a look at the asset management group and the Black Enterprise Asset Management combined assets. And you see the lower green line compared to the largest individual U.S. money manager, the upper gold line, during the period from 2000 to 2015. Keep in mind that the lower line represents tens of billions of dollars, whereas the upper line represents trillions of dollars. We can look at asset management firms like Ariel Capital, based here in Chicago, run by the founder, John Rogers, as having been more than 30 years of successful performance, yet they're still being denied opportunities, creating a huge gap in assets under management between the minority and women asset management firms and the majority asset management firms. We must continue to seek our fair share of professionally administered pools of money, for which it is our mutual best interest to have a proportional share of the business. And when we look at the investment banking group, we notice that firms like Loop Capital from here in Chicago, they have performed well, but they also have not received their proportional share of the business. I noticed that some of the firms like Loop have taken advantage of the irrational exuberance on the part of the majority firm competitors. Some of the majority firms have discarded some of their best talent during the economic downturns, which firms like Loop were there to create a soft landing. By managing their own financial capital well, they were able to pick up intellectual capital, allowing them to thrive in good times and bad times. Some of the firms thrived during the Great Recession because they were not involved in the subprime and derivative securities that destroyed firms like Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns. So here we have, from Operation Breadbasket in the 60s to the Wall Street Project reaching the age of majority in the new millennium. Rainbow Push stands on the foundation built by the Civil Rights Movement and the early economic justice advocates. With a two-pronged strategy, Rainbow Push has advocated for economic empowerment, for underrepresented cultures, and economic justice for everyone at both ends of the spectrum. Going forward, historically, underrepresented groups must collaborate to create a critical mass for impact that will disrupt the status quo. In the process, the Wall Street Project will be a perpetual marketplace and a forum for the exchange of fresh ideas and sources of capital. We look forward to seeing you at the 21st Annual Wall Street Project Economic Summit in New York February 2018. Our theme is resetting the inclusion and equality agenda with a positive disruption. It's time for us all to rise up and assume our roles as disruptive innovators. We are shovel ready to do business. Thank you very much.
Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. If you're just coming in, you're at the right place. This is the Rainbow Push Business Luncheon, and we're going to give out some flowers today while folks can still smell them. Very important. The next person coming to the microphone before we begin the actual serving of the meal is someone you all know. But I go back to this young man when I was in college. You see, I went to school at Johnson C. Smith in Charlotte, North Carolina, but 30 miles up the road, there was another black college, A&T. A&T had a powerful quarterback, 6'5", throw a bullet, 60 yards. That young man was Jesse Lewis Jackson. During the day, he was a quarterback, but at night he integrated lunchroom counters with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Please now welcome, with your warm applause, the founder of Rainbow Push. When they said it couldn't be done, he made it happen. You remember the story about Lieutenant Robert Goodman? President Reagan said, he's lost, forget about him. Jesse got him and brought him home. Jesse Lewis Jackson, your warm applause. Yes. Omega Psi Phi, till the day he dies. One heck of an athlete.
Give all a big hand for exaggeration. Give it up for our Norman. Let me express my sincere thanks to our board of directors, Push and Push Excel, CEF, Rainbow Push, for doing their fine job to make this organization continue to grow and to thrive. We express a hard-working and effective staff for doing their job and you for responding to our call. Today is the business luncheon. Tonight we honor about 200 youth with scholarships at the educational dinner tonight. Tomorrow morning will be our labor breakfast. There are about 1 million people in this state who are in what they call temporary work. Work 89 days and then laid off. If you work the 90th day, they would then have benefits. So it's skimming the system. The luncheon meeting on tomorrow, Reverend Sharp and other ministers will speak to us tomorrow at noontime. Reverend Andrew Young and C.T. Vivian and the like. Tomorrow night, athletes, life beyond the playing field. On Friday, Elizabeth Warren will address us at our noontime luncheon. Maxine Waters, we will be honoring, among others, Aretha Franklin. Now, we're not advertising that Aretha is singing at the luncheon. We're not advertising. But she did order a piano and an organ, so hint, hint. But we're not saying she's going to sing, but I don't know why she organized a piano and an organ, so just hint, hint, better get your tickets. That night at 6 o'clock at Rainbow Push, the gubernatorial candidates for the Democratic nomination. Now, the forum at Rainbow Push at 6 to 8 o'clock on Friday night. Bernie Sanders will address us on Saturday morning and a Black and Brown International Summit session as we build out our politics and revive our commitment to voter participation, and a big love fest on Saturday afternoon. So 4 days of vigorous activity. This is the first day. We're in a difficult moment, facing a kind of counter-cultural revolution. All that we have fought for is now in jeopardy. Protected right to vote is in jeopardy. So the President Trump has organized a commission on voter fraud. There is no voter fraud, there's consumer fraud, however. We're organizing a Rainbow Commission on voter suppression and the nullification that will come out of this convention. The House and Senate of this state have passed a bill, automatic registration at age 18. We urge the governor to sign that bill. He vetoed the last time, but this time I hope he will sign the bill for automatic voter registration at age 18. Put your hands together if you believe in that. I want to bring on a very special sister now who will give us remarks. Governor Terry McAuliffe is on the way here today on the runway for 3 hours because the weather could not land. So he will not be here, but maybe before the conference is over. But one of the 8 speakers in the world today from South Africa, Sister Ayando Diallo, is the Minister of Communications, Republic of South Africa, effective March 31st, 2017. She's a member of the African National Congress, member of Parliament, left South Africa in 1980 for Angola, where she was only 18 years old, to join the armed wing of the ANC, co-founded by Nelson Mandela. After serving in various camps in Angola and receiving training in Moscow, she went to England to study marine and shipping management. She returned to South Africa in 1994. She later became Secretary General of the Armed Wing Military Veterans Association. Sister Ayando served as the Deputy Minister of Public Service and Administration of the Republic of South Africa. Then she was first appointed to by Nelson Mandela. Today she's receiving our International Leadership and Humanitarian Award. Give her a big hand as a great advocate for justice, Iana. So give us some love.
Program Director, thank you very much. Reverend Jesse Jackson, I have no words to thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be part of this great occasion where a distinguished organization such as the Rainbow Push has deemed it fit to confer on me such a prestigious award. I received this award especially on behalf of the many female combatants, like myself, of South Africa, who at a very young age joined the struggle to liberate South Africa from the shackles of apartheid. These are the flowers of the revolution, whose dreams I carry in my heart and in my mind as I accept this honor here today. They sacrificed for a free South Africa, which we enjoy today, and we're internally indebted to them. I salute the flowers of the revolution. We're equally grateful to the international anti-apartheid movement of global networks of internationalists who believed and supported our cause for freedom. We're grateful for your support to the African National Congress and its government, and appreciate the philanthropic support for our developmental projects as well. The late being the building of the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, a dream President Mandela wanted fulfilled before his passing. I would like to especially thank and honor and recognize the sterling work of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., the founder and president of the Rainbow Push Coalition, for his contribution to our liberation as South Africa and the formation of a democratic South Africa. Reverend Jackson is himself a recipient of one of our most prestigious awards, national awards in South Africa, the Order of the Companions of Oliver Reginald Tambo in silver, which was bestowed on him by President Jacob Zuma in 2013. For his commitment to freedom and civil rights, international solidarity was one of the 4 pillars of the ANC struggle against apartheid, and we cherish this legacy, his legacy in South Africa, because it was in inter alia through the support and solidarity of the international community that we were able to defeat apartheid. Reverend, we're honored and proud of you and your hard work, which continues to advance the interests of the marginalized throughout the world. And as beneficiaries of international solidarity, the ANC-led government has worked tirelessly for a positive contribution to global peace and to the continent globally. I would like to thank everybody that is witnessing this with me here today. Thank everybody back at home who has carried me through so many years of hardship to the point at which I am today. And I'd like to share this all with you and say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Minister of Tourism of South Africa, Minister Zaza, stand. She's the Minister of Tourism of South Africa. Please stand. Remember, the entire African delegation stand. Give all of them a big hand. Stand, the African delegation. Give them a big hand. And the delegation, we will have an outlet of delegation from China. Chinese citizens and friends and scholars, please stand. Our Asian allies, give them a hand. The Asian rainbow. Stand up. How I say get up in Asian? Get up, y'all. Ask them to stand. Give them a big hand. Proceed with the dinner very much.
We're now going to begin our lunch. We have a full program coming your way in just a few minutes. My name is Art Norman, Channel 5 News, NBC. We'd like to say hello and welcome to you. If you're just coming in, you're at the right place. I look around and I see familiar faces. I see Larry Huggins, the founder of the Chicago Football Classic. That happens right here in the house. Emmett Vaughn's in the house, 100 black men. These are great black men doing great things in the community. Of course, I can't say enough about our visionaries. Dwayne, Brian, Intervision International standing over there. And you know, the matriarch of the South Side, I was out the other day on 79th Street eating dinner at Captain Hard Times by myself. In walks Aretha Franklin to sit down and have a meal. Please walk with your warm applause the owner of Captain Hard Times, Mother Wade. Josephine Wade's in the house. Thank you. We have many more introductions to do, but sit back, relax, enjoy, converse, and the full program's coming your way. Art Norman, Channel 5 News.
Look to your neighbor and tell him I'm covered under the blood of Jesus. Look to your other neighbor and tell him I'm safe in his arms. Amen. So, because the Lord is my shepherd, I have everything I need. He lets me rest cost me to do what I understand the most. That's why I'm saved. That's why I'm saved. That's why I'm saved. I'm saved. I'm saved. I'm saved in His arms. Oh, when the storm. Will you clap your hands right here? Come on. My God reigns. My God reigns. Our God reigns. Our God reigns. Lord, you reign above every name. Yeah. Sing my God reigns. My God reigns. Sing our God reigns, y'all. Our God reigns. Sing Lord, you reign above every name. Come on, say with power and majesty. Power and majesty. Dominion, authority. You reign. Sing it again with power and majesty, dominion, authority, you reign. Come on, let's go right here. Oh, sing my God reigns. My God reigns. Sing our God reigns. Our God reigns. Tell him, Lord, you reign above every name. Yeah, my God reigns. My God reigns. Sing our God reigns. Our God reigns. Lord, you reign above every name. Here we go with power and majesty. Power and majesty. Dominion, authority. Lord, you reign. Yes, you do. I need to hear you raise it up, church. Sing it with power and majesty. Dominion, authority. You reign. Oh, sing my God reigns. Our God reigns. Sing our God reigns. Our God reigns. Tell the Lord you reign above every name. I need to hear you tonight. My God reigns. My God reigns. Sing our God reigns. Yeah. Our God reigns. Tell the Lord you reign above every name. You got it now with power and majesty. Power and majesty. Oh, dominion and authority. Tell him you reign. Come on, that's it. I hear you. Sing it again with power and majesty. Say with power and majesty. Oh, dominion. Lord, you reign. Here we go. It's a church song. We got to go up again. Sing my God reigns. My God reigns. Sing our God reigns. Our God reigns. Tell him, Lord, you reign above every name. I love this song. My God reigns. My God reigns. Sing our God reigns. Our God reigns. Tell him, Lord, you reign above every name. Here we go. With power and majesty. Power and majesty. Oh, dominion. Authority. You reign. Come on. It's a simple declaration. One more time with power. With power and majesty. Oh, dominion. This is the last time, right? We got to go one more time, yo. Sing my God reigns. My God reigns. Sing our God reigns. Our God reigns. Tell him, Lord, you reign above every name. Yeah, my God reigns. My God reigns. Tell him, Lord, you reign. Yeah. Our God reigns. Sing, Lord, you reign above. We changed the lyric. We changed the lyric. Watch this. Over my circumstance, giving me another chance. You reign. Yeah. Somebody declare it. Over my circumstance. Say, over my circumstance, giving me another chance. You reign. Sing that one more time. Over my circumstance. Over my circumstance. You declare it. Giving me another chance. You reign. You got to declare that prophetically tonight. Say, over my circumstance. Over my circumstance. And he's giving me another chance. You reign. You reign. Somebody declare, you reign. It's real simple. Come on, singers. You reign. I need to hear your church say, you reign.
Let me have your attention, please. Let me have your attention, please. We want to move along as hurriedly and yet as respectful as we can in the session today. When we first went to Wall Street, a few of us there, many of them were blockers and not door openers. We got to Silicon Valley, became even more so, facing a radical rejection of our shaking up the system they were not allowed to be a part of. I first met Sister Roz Hudnick back in 1999 as we opened up closed doors in Silicon Valley. 189 board members, 36 white women, 3 African Americans, 1 Latino. Almost no money for investment capital. Since that time, Jim Bell is now on the board of Apple, the 4 blacks on the boards of Hewlett Packard. Chairman of the board of Microsoft is John Thompson. Numbers continue to grow, but the connection in the C-suite was a missing link. And many of those saw themselves in the C-suite as being somehow more akin to their boss than to the cause that we struggled for. Roz Hudnick got real close to her chairman, and she has become a transformative force. We were able to get her president, Brian Kucinich, to set aside $300 million for investment development. About a third of it to make the company look like America by 2020. About a third for development of small business that had the stuff but didn't have the capital. And a third to HBCUs, where most engineers come from. No one has stood tall in Silicon Valley. Nothing more to help us make this case and set the model for leadership in Silicon Valley to go forward. And Roz Hudnick, she is the Technology Trailblazer Award recipient this year. Give a big hand for Roz Hudnick. Put your hands together.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Somehow getting a Trailblazer Award from Reverend Jesse Jackson makes me feel both unworthy and feel like it's not going to get any better than this, so maybe I should just go back and say I've done a good job and go spend all my time with those grandchildren that my husband and I have now. But I do want to thank the entire board of directors, Citizen Education Fund, Rainbow Push, and of course, Reverend Jesse Jackson Jr., and the person who I work with to make good trouble in Silicon Valley, Mr. Butch Swing. Let's give Butch a hand. You know, what I've grown to appreciate about Reverend Jesse Jackson, that I think if you look at blogs and what people say, they really just don't get that, yes, he is an activist, but I have found him as an activist with incredible grace, incredible compassion, and a heart the size of the world for others. And in fact, what's been interesting is to watch him work in what I think is one of the most challenging environments, and that's Silicon Valley, and take that grace into the halls of engineers that deal with hard data and analytics and challenge companies to find our souls. And the thing that I remember the most, I had the honor of interviewing him for a video we did inside of Intel, and the thing that I talked to him about was many people see the protests, Reverend Jackson, and the thing that we all know is that man who stood in this fine community of Chicago and watched President Barack Obama's victory speech that night, and he had this one tear rolling down. And what you knew was that one tear signified the enormous amount of struggle, just the realization of what I know I didn't think would ever happen, and certainly he didn't think would ever happen. But what I want to talk about is really how his leadership has really transformed Silicon Valley. And while this is an award for what I've done, and if it inspires others to do it, then I accept on that, recognizing that there is nothing that I have done that has been done on my own. I'm incredibly honored to be in this room. There are so many people who are chief diversity officers, who run foundations, who do this kind of work like I do every day, and I call all of you my friends, and any one of you could be up here along with me. Last year I celebrated my 20th year in technology, so I don't need my glasses for this part. I didn't write this down because this is the part of the story I know. So I just want you to say, 20 years, I'm black, I'm a female, and I am not an engineer. Yeah, 20 years. It's, unfortunately, I am the exception and not the rule. And I started to get interviewed a lot, and I started to get asked, how did you survive 20 years? What was it about you? I said, there really wasn't anything special about me, except that I think I was incredibly resilient. And I think I had an incredible amount of role models, and knowing that when I walked into Intel, I was walking into Intel with the generations before me, with my mother, with my grandmother, the people that I knew sacrificed for me. And so every day I walked into Intel, I felt it was a gift, and I felt it was a tremendous responsibility to make sure that the door I walked through would become wider for others behind me. And over time, my job has really been about pulling others through that door. And ladies and gentlemen, it takes some pulling. And I would be remiss not to recognize the person that really should be up here with me right now, because there is nothing. You do not survive 20 years in Silicon Valley, raise 3 college education paying their own bills, children, and are able to still have a sense of joy and fulfillment in what you do if you don't have a partner that supports you along the way. So I do want to recognize Reverend Jesse Jackson's new best friend. They joke all the time. My husband, Ricardo Hudnell. Thank you. I want to recognize that's handsome man. Yes, ladies, he's been taken for 7 years. I do want to recognize Dawn Jones over there. Dawn is with Intel. She has almost been at Intel. I think you've almost been at Intel, coming up on 20 years. And she has worked in community relations. She's in our diversity organization now. When you go to the Intel booth, you'll see our virtual reality. She's really been driving that for us. And Dawn, I thank you. I'm up here, but you're doing a lot of the work. Thank you. So they asked me to talk to you, and I said, what can I say to this room? And what I thought was, when I looked at the theme of heal and rebuild, it really has been my personal journey since the election. And, there were really 2 incidents that left me feeling the exact same. There was the incident the day after President Barack Obama was elected, and our son came home from one of his schools, and there was a student that had come in wearing a shirt with the Confederate flag on it and was saying things about how he felt about the election. And on election day, my husband and I kind of did our voting. We're watching TV, and we decided we'd go ahead. We had some season tickets to a basketball game, and we went to the basketball game. As the basketball game was letting out, we're in California, it was becoming clear, and had become clear, the outcome of the election, and there was a group of young men who yelled things at us that I would not repeat. And what I recognized in that moment was the pain of both of those for me was the exact same. And it really wasn't necessarily about who was in the White House as much as how much progress we'd had and yet how much we still had in the struggle. I mean, think about the last 50 years of legislation. Brown versus Board of Education, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, Loving versus Virginia, Roe versus Wade, Education for All Handicapped Children. President Obama, of course, expanded the Hate Crimes Prevention Act, repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. National Federation of Independent Business versus Celibus. Do you guys know which one that is? Yeah, that's the one that commonly ensured that Obamacare remained law. United States versus Windsor states that federal government must provide benefits to legally married same-sex couples. That was just in 2013. And on and on and on. So you think we've had this 50 years of tremendous progress, and for us, we saw that culminate in an election of somebody that looked like us, somebody that we actually didn't believe, right? We thought we had arrived, and let's be honest, we had a happy 8 years. We were happy, and I wonder if that happy times are here again, did we get too comfortable? You see, part of me thinks that when you really want progress, do you know what a slingshot? You know, a slingshot, remember a slingshot, you have to pull it back further in order for the ball to go far. So is this our slingshot moment? If we really rise to the call, is this when we can really go further? Because I believe for me, that's what I began to think. I mean, for my career during that 8 years, I mean, I had the opportunity to do a project that put me in the room with President Barack Obama and the CEO of Intel focused on building more diverse engineers in this country. That was my career best. That was oh happy day, because that's what I do. But during that time, when we all thought we had achieved, the Democratic Party lost over 900 state legislative seats, 12 governorships, 69 House seats, and 13 Senate seats. But we're having oh happy day. In 2013, the U.S. Supreme Court decision effectively removed a vital provision of the landmark 1965 Voting Rights Act, which required 16 jurisdictions, including several former Confederate states, such as Texas, to seek pre-clearance the U.S. Department of Justice before making changes to election draws and redistricting maps. And if we're honest with ourselves, I'm not sure our country was as outraged as we probably would be if that legislation passed today. So then the election happens, and this really isn't necessarily about politics, it's about what began to happen. Think about this. Before, we were seeing the demise of the printed journalism. Wall Street Journal saw a 300% spike in new subscribers. New York Times saw an increase in new subscribers. NAACP membership rose by 87%, donations up 200% from the previous year. Anti-Defamation League, 70%, and on and on and on. We woke up. And my challenge is that it does not matter who is in the White House or who is in our own house, we should be awake all the time. You know, I say progress is like a muscle. You have to work it out. You want to stay strong and you want to stay fit. You can't just sit on the couch all day. You have to go work it out. But let me talk to you a little bit about what was my personal wake-up call. In a recent CSR survey, most people are saying that they believe that corporations should be doing more, that corporations can be the answer, that corporations should be the answer. And I sit here today having the honor of being executive for a major corporation. I am honored by that. It's an awesome responsibility, and it's an awesome achievement. But I began to think about, Is it enough to ride on the laurels of who you work for and the title you have? What is our personal responsibility? The one article that just stuck with me that I read the next day, and many of you probably read it. It was by Charles Ellison. It first appeared in The Root, and it talked about black women were the only ones who tried to save the world Tuesday night. Whether black women's votes were indeed an honest attempt at sincerely supporting the candidate, or whether they were seated in a real belief that she would be the most qualified president since, well, Barack Obama, is beside the point. What's poignant is the impressive show of electoral force from black women, despite odds historically stacked against them, and frankly, the almost scandalous underestimation of their value at the Election Day polls, Charles Ellison wrote. And what it began to make me think of was, what was my personal responsibility? I voted. I head up a foundation. I'm driving and drove a huge diversity agenda, which we're proud of, that's leading the technology industry. But where in the middle of all of this is my personal role? And I did begin to question whether or not I had done enough. I questioned, quite frankly, when you've done diversity as long as I was doing it, and you look at what's going on in the world and we are not where we want to be, you question whether or not you made a difference. The week after the election, I was in Vienna to speak, and I was in a round table of women from 15 different countries, including Ghana, Kenya, and India, and what struck me was how they were continuing to still look at us and look at me as their sign of hope. So ladies and gentlemen, that's when I began to heal and figured out I better get up and figure it out, because I still was walking into a major brand who had made a decision based on the enormous amount of work of Reverend Jesse Jackson and him asking our CEO to lead and us stepping back and saying, you know what he's asking other companies to do, share your data, be transparent, set goals. We've been doing for over a decade. It's time for us to step up and lead. So the opportunity, and yes, we get a lot of credit for the money, but the real commitment is to actually hire, is to actually promote, is to actually put more diverse individuals into jobs that matter. So I decided, yes, I'm going to continue to do all I can from an Intel perspective, and Intel is a phenomenal platform to do it. And think about this, Intel started in 1968. So as the world was progressing for 50 years, we've been transforming the world for 50 years. There's not a piece of technology that you own right now that has not been driven by the innovation that Moore's Law drove. The Intel Foundation that I'm honored to head up celebrates our 30th anniversary next year. So we have this long legacy of being this tech company that actually has an incredible soul. We've been the largest funder of scholarships for African American and Hispanic college students for over a decade. We continue to do that. And yes, majority of our products are still built here in the United States of America. We run major manufacturing in this country, so Intel is a phenomenal company. But as any company, we are not perfect. So what I decided was that I would kind of have this mantra that said, I march into a corporate setting every single day, focus on letting my performance prove the business case for diversity, and focus on ensuring that the door that I've been working for 20 years to hold open and become wider becomes so wide, it's not a door, but it's actually a hangar. It's so big that all that want to walk through it can walk through it. But I also recognize that I need to personally march myself more and more and volunteer and give back and donate to organizations, personally myself. We all need to march into our civil rights organizations, volunteer, give back, and sometimes just say thank you. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we better march to the polls and vote next time. So today is really about healing. It's about healing from what we thought we had achieved and what we see maybe we haven't. But what I would say is, think about what Reverend Jesse Jackson was working with when he started on his journey. Think about the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Bobby Kennedy, and people still kept going. Think about what your parents had to deal with, and they still kept going. So if we were able to achieve all we've achieved in these last 50 years with people that were facing that, if we come together in our corporate offices, our nonprofit organizations, our homes, our educational institutions, just think of what we can achieve for my grandchildren and yours 50 years from now. I am honored. I have to tell you, yeah, I'm going to brag. I got an award from Reverend Jesse Jackson Jr. because, you know, like that doesn't happen every day. Yeah. But even more than that, what I'm going to talk about when I go home is that is our responsibility. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. What I'm concerned about is the people that aren't in here. What I'm concerned about is the people maybe that have lost hope. What I'm concerned about is the people that really have forgotten how much progress we've made. The fact that we can all be in this phenomenal ballroom and the fact that I can be here as an executive of a major multinational company says that progress is real. Our challenge is to make sure that our individual progress and our organizational progress is the norm and not the exception. And if this award challenges others to do the same, I accept it on behalf. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.
Put your hands together. Let me give her her award. Let me make this special appeal to you because we're not here to eat just because we're hungry, it's a cause. The two things I want to happen that need your attention. One, there are a few people to be honored. It will not take long, but they deserve it, and your presence makes it important. Cheryl Pearson Grace is here someplace. No one gives us more data every year, every event.
She's right there. Right over here. She's raising her hand.
Cheryl, I need to see you, please, ma'am. A part of our leverage when we fight these companies is information. We're going to give them United Airlines, so the skies may be friendly, but there's no black on the board. United, they're not friendly on the ground. And data matters. And I want to think, Cheryl, no one has been more for the last few years of giving us data from which we make our judgments, and you want to express our thanks to you. Share with us, please, kind of where we are right now with Nielsen, please.
Good afternoon. So normally I come up and I talk about our spending power as African Americans, but today I want to put a little twist on it.
Okay.
So just work with me, right, Art?
Right.
So in order for, Art's like, right? In order for our clients to understand how to reach and sell to their prospective clients and customers, they count on Nielsen, the company that measures what you watch and what you buy, to have our stuff tight, okay? Our clients include ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, as well as Unilever, P&G, Walgreens, and Walmart, just to name a few. And they rely on us every single day to share with them insights about their businesses. So I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse into a day in the life of Nielsen, just to put it in perspective. So in one day, Nielsen measures 40,000 TV programs, that we use 80,000 people meters in approximately 14,000 US homes. These results actually help determine where $70 billion of advertising is being spent as relates to television. In one day, Nielsen tallies the playlist of 2,800 radio stations in 22 countries, totaling approximately 560,000 songs that are being played. One day. In one day, Nielsen measures 51.5 million transactions at 36,000 retail stores around the world. We measure 2.1 million book sales in about 12,000 locations. And we log recorded music purchases from 31,000 locations and DVD sales from about 150,000 locations, again, in one day. I'm almost done. In one day, we have 125,000 volunteer panelists, volunteer being the operative word here, who actually have scanners in their homes so that whenever they go grocery shopping or whenever they go to the drugstore or a big box store, they come home and they scan every single thing that they've purchased. And that adds up to about 279,433 products each day that are being scanned. We measure your web surfing habits with your permission. We measure about 410,000 people around the world, and we track the sales of 429,000 ringtones in one day. And we scour 3 million blogs and message posts each day for mentions of products or personalities or services. That's what we offer our clients in one day. And every time I stand before you and I talk about our power as a group of people, I have people who come up to me afterwards and they say, well, how can I get that information about my company? How can I get it about my business? And I've never been able to tell you that we can offer you something at a rate for your small company or your business until today. Finally, we do. We have, and you're going to need to take out a pencil, you're going to take out your cell phone, you're going to take out whatever, because I won't be able to talk to all of you afterwards, but I'm actually going to give you my number at the office because, Art, because for as little as $500, Nielsen now has packages available for small businesses to help you take some of these insights and sell your products, your services to your customers. And guess what, Dorothy? It works for nonprofit organizations as well. It works for publishers as well. The folks over at NNPA are always asking me, how can we get people to understand the power of our newspapers? We have it. I've been with the company for 13 years now as of last month, and it's been a chore. I do it with love. But finally, we have something that everyone can use to grow your own respective businesses and to grow your own respective power. So the number is 312 385 6505. I'm Cheryl Grace, and I hope one day it will make an impact on your life and your business. Thank you.
Cheryl Grace. Cheryl Grace. Nice job.
I want, in these last few moments, please, one of my sisters, beloved I've known for all these many years, she is now again the national head of Negro News Publishers, 200 of them, Dorothy Lavelle. Dorothy, please stand.
Dorothy Lavelle.
Where's Dorothy?
Seda.
Give her a big hand. We are no longer on the Word Network. We're on Impact Network, African American owned television network out of Detroit. Louis Gibbs, please stand. Every Saturday morning, as I call your names, come forward. These are distinguished business people who turn the corner and set the pace for others of us. I want them to come to be honored right now, just very quickly, and then we'll be out of here. From Chicago, by way of Mississippi, by way of Detroit, Louis James. Louis James. Secondly, from Detroit, the chair of our work in Chicago, John Graves. Brother John Graves. Martha, come up here, please. John Graves, who is chair of the Rainbow in Detroit, our automotive arm, member of our board. Where's John? Oh. He used to play football. That's, you can see evidence of it. The way a big hand for John Graves.
Beautiful.
Sherry Wilson. Will you, Sherry? Yeah, right. John Rogers Jr. Where's John? Area Capital. John, Area Capital. Give it up for John Rogers Jr. The best in the country at what he does. Oh, look, okay, Sharon.
All right, get in there. We'd like to say hello to all the young people from Kennedy King College, standing in the back. Bigger wave, Kennedy King College. And hello to all the After School Matters people with the AT&T table. Make some, show your love for those young people. Young people.
A sister who works with our technology area, who has been co-chair of this year's convention, to her name 14 patents, Helen Crawley Austin. Give it to Helen, please come forward. Give it up for Helen, please. For 5 years, he has given tirelessly of his time and effort and brilliance. Brother James Hill, Jr., who has helped to build us out. Big hand for James Hill, Jr., a very able CPA. Give it up for Brother Hill. Mrs. Hill, come up here too, please, ma'am. He's handicapped. He has a wife to subsidize him. Give her a hand, Mrs. Hill.
A big shout out to LaRue Martin with UPS. He just gave $5,000 for scholarships for the National Association of Black Journalists. We have a lot of young people with the grades to go to college, but not the money. But LaRue Martin, 7 feet tall.
And from Detroit, who we'll see later this week, but from Detroit, one of our best suppliers, Bill Picard. Give Bill Picard a big hand, shall we? Bill Picard from Detroit. Let us stand together. Yes, ma'am. Okay, yeah, we can. Just stand together. One of our oratory kids. Where are you, baby? Janicia Williams. Where's Janicia? Let me say as we close this part of our workout, we have a workshop today. It will be valuable to you in the days to come. And tonight we honor our youth with our 200 scholarships tonight. Tomorrow morning we fight for working people to get wages and benefits. Noontime our ministers tomorrow night our athletes, and on Friday we will honor Aretha Franklin. She's not programmed to sing, but she did all the piano and the organ. And so get your tables early on and tickets and so forth and so on. and we close up with Bernie Sanders on Saturday. Tanisha?
It's gonna be like 3 minutes. You guys can have a seat. My name is Janicia Williams, and I'm a rising freshman at Howard University. Over the last 5 years I've spent in Push Excel's oratory program, I've learned the importance of speech and what it means to lead through speech. Now, as an incoming freshman at Howard, I put a lot of thought into how I would utilize my freedom of speech throughout my time on campus. Freedom of speech is a right given to us by the First Amendment of our Constitution. However, the Bible limits that right, teaching that it is more important to hold your tongue to prevent evil speech from spewing out. Therefore, as a religious citizen, I must find the balance between the two conditions. Because our nation gives us the right to say whatever we want, there is in fact power in what we choose to say. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21 says, "The power of life and death lies in the tongue." So because of that, we must speak only to help, not to hurt. We must recognize wrongs, but rather than just complaining, we must then speak on what is right. No change can be made by merely airing grievances. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." So when I arrive on my college campus, I will speak about hope, faith, and unity. After the presidential election, tens of thousands of students walked out of their classrooms in protest. Students took a stand so their voices could be heard, attempting to shed light on issues such as women's rights, Black Lives Matter, and immigration. At Howard University, students formed a group called H U Resist, which was created not only as a response to Donald Trump's dangerous rhetoric, but also as a way to ensure transparency and accountability from Howard's administration. This is how freedom of speech should be used as a call and catalyst for change. Freedom of speech should be used to resist. Resist turning back the clock on women's rights. Resist the ban on immigration. Resist budget cuts for low-income housing. Resist the use of stop and frisk. Resist America returning to a greatness that never existed for some of us. Freedom of speech is the right to fight for what is right without fear of being silenced, because everyone has a right to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, good job, good job, good job, good job. On the table.
Let's stand together. It's just 2:15. We've had a little overtime and dinners for a long time. This not that early, just 15. On your tables are heal and rebuild cards. I want you to fill out the envelopes, not so much for the money that we will not turn it down. We need you in our database. We have work to do. There's a big election in Virginia and New Jersey this coming year. We need your support to fight these fights, to not let the clock be turned back. I saw Desiree. Where's Desiree Rogers? Desiree, come up here, please, ma'am. You mean so much to us. Give her a hand. She's so good to us. Big hand for Desiree. Let us join hands and bow our heads in prayer. We feel the chilly winds of adversity, the headwinds of resistance, and yet we're called to fight on. We'll knock down, we get up again. Forgive us for our sins and the foolishness of our ways and make us better and never bitter. Bless our feeble efforts to send sounds and signals from this place, reverberate into hope that will go beyond any cynical reaction to these difficult times. Bless our organization, the Rainbow Push Coalition. The coming day, let something be said from this place will turn the course for the better. To help us stop the killing,
yes,
the violence, loss of the lives of our children, or painful it is to watch our babies buried. Spare us of this nightmare. Give us hope. We know it, weeping may endure for a night, but we hold on and hold out and don't give up. Joy cometh in the morning. We wait for that morning of peace without end. Amen. Thank you. Downstairs, there's some tech, the Push Tech Expo. Go ahead and look at our children's exhibits. Please go down to the lower level. Down to the lower level. Hey, you.
Got an announcement from David Day and the 100 Black Men of Chicago. David is the new Vice President of Development at Chicago State University. He says Chicago State is open for business, celebrating its 150th anniversary. Alumni Gala this fall. More information, go to their website. David Day, 100 Black Men of Chicago. We'd like to say hello and congratulations to Dorothy Lavelle from the Crusader. She is the new chairman of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, 200 newspapers around the country. She's based right here in Chicago. Dorothy Lavelle, congratulations. Kudos to Mike House. Kudos.